Good afternoon and welcome to our third edition of our Inside ProCents educational webinar series. You have most likely seen some of our Inside ProCents videos on LinkedIn or in your email inbox, each one designed to focus on our individual members while also providing context for the value provided by ProCents directly from our members' lips. These will continue, so keep your eyes peeled. This new educational webinar series, however, has a very special focus. These webinars are designed to help our members understand the unique aspects of the support services and products that our ProCents sellers are providing. Each selected presentation is designed to shine a light on the tools and/or solutions that are unique to each seller and that can be leveraged for greater growth-related opportunities by both buyers and sellers within our ProCents environment. As always, our focus is on every member's ultimate ability to succeed. My name is Devin Anderson, and I am the president over here at ProCents. And as always, I am joined by the rest of the leadership team, Mr. J.R. Edens, a ProCents partner, and our CEO, Mr. Matt Russell. Matt, would you like to say a few words before we get started?
As always, I'm excited to share some insights with our partners in IoT deployment. So I know that IoT is becoming more and more of a popular term as we've seen over the last couple of years. And it's something that we always need to make sure that we're as current as possible with everything that's going on around it. So I appreciate Jonathan's time and everyone that's here and everyone that will be watching. Thank you.
Right on, very much appreciated, sir. All right, and now on to today's event. Today we are featuring one of our ProCents sellers within the ProCents environment. Also a respected friend of mine going back at least 8 years. I think it's going now, Jonathan.
Yeah, it's crazy.
My hairline is telling the story. Mr. Jonathan Cambas of IoT Deployment Services, also called IDS, who will focus on his attention on ways his organization can help our members not only identify, but also capture one of today's greatest opportunities for added revenue in our innovative environment, wireless controls and the Internet of Things, also known as the IoT. Good afternoon, Jonathan, and welcome to the Inside ProCents educational webinar series.
Good afternoon, Devin and team. Thank you very much for having me. It's definitely a pleasure. So as Devin had mentioned, I'm Jonathan Cambas, one of the co-founders of IoT Deployment Services, and my role is strategic partnerships, so i.e. sales. And my goal today is for everyone to walk away from this with more information about IoT and how it can impact your particular channel of business, and also a desire to learn more. One of the things that our mantra has been is that we don't have competitors, we have partners. And if anybody's worked with us in the past, hopefully that's been the impression that they've got as well. So you can go to the first slide, Devin. So before we get into some of the applications that we do, I think it's important for all of us to at least go over some of the major trends that we're seeing in the energy, lighting, controls space. Like Devin, you'd mentioned, we've known each other for about 8 years now. And 8 years ago, IoT was something that would definitely get a lot of head nods and confusing looks from people if you brought it up. I always would like to compare it to a smart home. So most people are familiar nowadays with automated lighting, HVAC, garage doors, whatever it may be. And the concept is very similar in the commercial space. It's just typically on a larger scale. So with major trends, I'm sure everybody is aware that more and more LED lighting manufacturers are looking to get into the control space. The traditional method has been an external controller of some sort, whether it's a relay tied to an occupancy sensor, et cetera. But nowadays, most manufacturers are making fixtures that already have controls embedded in them. And that could be their own proprietary controls, but there's also controls companies that have non-proprietary hardware that can reside on other people's fixtures. So that definitely opens up the door for a lot more opportunities within the space. And one thing that's really important is I do believe this firmly, that if you're going to be successful in the sales channel, even if your main focus is lighting, knowing more about IoT and controls is going to help you to set yourself apart from the pack and fly at an altitude so high that your competitors don't even know you're there. So network controls is becoming more and more popular, and you're going to see this a lot more in the vertical type of companies, the Fortune 500s of the world. And that's just it. It's sensors everywhere. So most people have proven out or understand the value of LEDs nowadays. Not as difficult to explain the reliability and the savings that are achieved from them. It's more about differentiation. So with this, it gives you the opportunity when somebody is looking to save energy to bring in IoT. And this is where you have sensors everywhere. And what I mean by that is that just from a simple lighting installation, for example, you have a networked factory installed control, you're creating this IoT infrastructure for the customer. And that's important for your business. One of the reasons is if you have been in the lighting industry for 10, 20 years, maintenance type of service was an important continual revenue stream. But with LEDs, although you get a capital project, one of the downsides for a lighting company is that they're typically going to have those lights in there for some time. However, with IoT controls in the space, it's what we call a sticky product. So it allows you to stay close to your customer and go beyond just their traditional kWh savings. With that, most people have probably heard of the 330-300 rule. So this is an important part as well. In the higher level you're talking to of a customer, they're going to get this and it's going to help you be more successful. So we always talk about saving energy, 50% off of your bill, et cetera. But from the square foot of a space, $3 is meant for energy, and then $30 is for the actual real estate, and $300 for the employees in the space. And that's a big significant difference right there, because a small increase in employee productivity can yield significant cost impact or dollar savings for an organization. And that's where we get into artificial intelligence, creating a building that is smart, one that's continually evolving. So there's so much information out there. Even myself, I'm very versed in IoT, but it gets confusing, right? So I think it's important for everybody that's here part of ProCents to understand that to be successful going forward, it really is going to make a huge difference for your company, for your own perspective on the market to evolve, not just from lighting and energy saving to technological integrators. So positioning yourself as an IoT focused company is going to be something that's really going to make an impact to your success. There's ways to do that. Obviously, education. I just mentioned there's so much information out there and it can be tough to navigate, but it's something that's very important. And one of the reasons you're probably here today for a seminar like this, you can hire and train IT focused staff. And that's one way to do it, or you could just partner with an IoT services firm. You can go to the next slide, Devin. So bringing in IoT deployment services, just to give everybody an understanding of how we operate, we do have our own turnkey business where we have strategic accounts that we've worked with for years, and we run programs for them across the country, in some situations international. And our process is something that most people are going to be familiar with, all the way from the audit stage, the sales, the deployment of it. But one thing that's really allowed us to be successful in this marketplace is after the sale, after the installation, it's the warranty and the support. Most people, when you're dealing with controls in general, expect a similar scenario to an LED. You install a lighting project, you walk away and you never have to touch it again. But these are IT systems. They do require updates and maintenance and support. So it's extremely important when you have these types of customers that you're able to bring it back all the way to the front. So I always like to explain it as if, you can sell one controls project or one IoT project. You haven't necessarily been successful in that. The real measure of the success is if you're able to sell 2, 3, 4. And that's the benefit of it. I mentioned earlier that this is a sticky product. So it allows you to stay close to your customers. And if you manage it properly, you would be amazed at the amount of business that you can grow with this. So I had mentioned it's important to understand and educate yourself on the IoT space, but you can also partner with a company like IoT Deployment Services. I mentioned we have our own turnkey sales division, but at the same time, we don't see competition. We want partners. So this gives you an opportunity to work with a company that has the processes already in place to do these types of initiatives. Next slide, Devin. This is just a breakdown. I'm not going to read every bit of this, but just a breakdown of the flow chart that we just looked at. I think some areas that are really important to understand is going beyond the traditional clipboard and paper, counting lights, etc. On the left, you'll see the reality capture and design in the middle. So we're always looking for new technology, the cutting edge type of technology. And one thing that we're extremely excited about is LiDAR scanning. So LiDAR is taking the entire space and being able to model it in such a way that it's near impossible to miss anything through an audit. And that's also something that's important as you continue to grow the controls infrastructure through the space. Okay, next slide. So tracking a controls project. If any of you have done a controls project in the past, any type of networked controls, you probably are familiar with an image like this. So typically these devices have an individual serial number or what they call an IEEE number that's associated to every single fixture. And this is where it does get messy. We've worked with plenty of customers that have had projects of this nature, and this is their finished product. It's probably okay for the initial deployment of the job, but going forward, any type of growth to the system is going to be practically a nightmare. So one thing that we've focused on tremendously throughout the years is creating an IoT process that's going to be effective and something that we can build off of for the customer. So tracking a controls project, next slide, the right way. So what does that mean? There's a lot of words on here. I wouldn't expect anybody to read this, but the purpose of this is to show that our entire business is set up is structured in a way for successful controls projects. So we have individual departments for specific business segments, and we're able to, and we do the training with the contractors and help them through the process. Instead of having these messy floor plans with every single kind of transposed error that you can think of, we have created and developed different apps to use during the process. And on the right side, you'll see this is just some screenshots from our app that we have, but this is a game changer right here. This has allowed us to not only track these devices as they're being installed, but it creates an interactive punch list where we're able to work with the customer or the contractor during the process. And better than that, the end result is a clean as-built with all of the controls that have been installed. Next slide. Here's an example of one. And as far as the controls technology, we're agnostic to not only controls, but to lighting in general. So we've developed a system that's pretty much cookie cutter for any type of controls. Obviously, there's going to be some differences amongst the technologies, but this is something that the customer would get. On the left, you'll see the lighting layout, and each one of these devices or each one of these lights has a unique serial code or a number associated with it. So with those, we're able to provide a finished product to the customer, something that's clean, and it allows us to build on that for vertical business. Next slide. So bringing it together, what does all this mean? There is so much to understand in the control space, but software solutions, this is what we do. So we have been able to take the data that is collected from these devices, whether it's an occupancy sensor or a temperature sensor, and we're able to create useful business cases for customers. We have several different case studies that we could share. One of the ones I liked a lot is for big box retail. So I think a lot of people would assume that some of the most important functions in controls are just turning lights off when you don't need the space. But in this example, which we did a little over 800 stores. All of the fixtures had unique beacons or Bluetooth beacons within the fixtures. And we were able to create XY coordinates throughout the space. And what that means is that now with this technology, the customer, the retailer can build off of this. You as a customer might walk into a grocery store or whatever it may be, and you open up your phone to search for, you name it. Now what happens is that the camera on your phone is able to pick up the barcode off the light and understand where you're at in that space. A lot of really useful applications are being planned for this. For example, you might be looking at ketchup and you get a coupon for the store brand versus the major net retail brand. Customers could take pictures of a spill on aisle 4 and it's able to GPS triangulate that. And the future is you have AI robotics to go and clean up the space. They're trying a lot of different applications in the space, and it's starting to prove out. 10 years ago, a lot of this is selling the future, stuff that's not here. But it's exciting as we're seeing this come to fruition and these types of applications be useful for companies. Next slide. Another one, this is one of my favorites that we've done. So I mentioned earlier that each one of these sensors has data on it, right? So we've taken customers with office space and large office space where you have millions of square feet, downtown type campuses. And one of the issues that they were having was the executives were spending an inordinate amount of time looking for a conference room. And this is where you get into the ROI beyond just the typical KWH savings. So what we had created for them is an interactive floor plan, and we had a TV monitor in the elevator lobby. So you get out of the elevator lobby and you see the screen and you have a green dot on the room. Pretty simple, right? Simple and easy to use. Green dot on the room's available. A red dot, it's occupied. They like that. It was able to create a lot of efficiencies for them. And then we added some of the employee comfort metrics to these interactive plans, stuff like temperature of the space of that particular room. So you might see 2 available rooms, 174, 172. I'm a little hot today, so I'm going to go to the 72-degree room. That was a significant value for this customer, and it opened up the door for us to do lighting in a lot of their other buildings as a result. But then all of a sudden we had a new issue come onto the space, and that's COVID. So when COVID first hit, everybody is pretty much freaking out, cleaning everything and doing what they can to avoid liability, et cetera. And we had found in this one area, this is a lot of time they're spending, but keep in mind, this is a huge campus. Their janitorial staff was spending up to 600 hours extra just looking to clean rooms. So they were pretty much one by one, just going through, not the most efficient way to do it, but that's all they knew to do at the time. So we created and built on top of the Room Finder application, something that we call the Smart Building Disinfecting application. Now, keep in mind, this is what's the beauty of controls, is that you're able to, once you create that IoT infrastructure from a lighting project, for example, you're able to stay close to that customer and continue to build on these applications. So we said, okay, well, we already have green dot, red dot. Why don't we, instead of the room turning to a green dot whenever somebody leaves, it's available, why don't we have that room turn orange instead? So now the cleaning staff can see, okay, an orange dot on the room, this room requires disinfecting. So now instead of going to every single room multiple times, in some cases, they're able to address only the spaces that have been used. And then when they're finished, we programmed it into the software where they would just hit the light switch in a specific cadence. So up, up, down, and then it resets it to green so they know that it's available. So these are cases that have made a significant impact to not only the bottom line of the customers, but as we're all looking for more revenue, it's made a significant impact to our revenue as well. So my goal, my desire is that some of these applications that we've looked at are enough to get you interested to learn more, right? I always present myself as an open door. We're coming to an end on the presentation. So a lot of this information is kind of thrown spaghetti at the wall, but hopefully you've got enough understanding through this to want to learn more. So you can go to the last slide just with my contact information on there, Devin. But at this point, I'd just like to leave the door open for any questions that people have. And yeah, we'll just keep it going.
Yeah, that was a really, I think, a really solid presentation, Jonathan. I think, to sum it up, just from my perspective, and one of the reasons why we had incorporated IoT deployment services as a ProCents seller is because of the opportunity here. I think for a lot of our buyers specifically is really big. Like it's an opportunity that most people would like to capture, but the idea of selling controls is a little scary. People have heard so many different stories about bad control jobs that have happened in the industry, and we're already dealing with enough challenges as it is. Why add one more, especially when we don't know it? One of the things I have advocated for years, going back to my days at Daintree, is how important it is to have a partner, a third-party partner, somebody that is not a part of the manufacturer itself, somebody that you can work with directly, that you can trust to be there to help you through some of these more difficult components and strategies, and setting expectations and all of these different things, especially the front end and the back end of the project. And like I say, I've gone back eight years with this guy, and with his his partner and counterpart, Derek Davis. If you haven't met him before, that's a name you want to get to know. This is a way for you to be able to identify an opportunity, which for the most part, a large scale opportunity is not any different than a small scale one. It's just amplifying the amount of lights that you're replacing. It's amplifying the electrical side, which is stuff you already do. So incorporating this type of an opportunity into that, which then also is often the key to driving your ability to take on the entire project, by having a partner that can help you with the part that's scary to you, is really, really a big part of why we have IDS in the environment. That he mentioned that they're turnkey. So you could literally, if you see an opportunity, you could just hand it over to them and they could run with it if you didn't want to touch it. That's partnering, and we would find ways to make sure that whatever that handoff looks like, that could have rebate potential for you as well. But if you wanted to incorporate it into your opportunity, this is the avenue and this is the pathway. And the beauty of it is, when a project ends and requires that ongoing support, they're there to take care of that. And like he said, it's a sticky function that he plays. His fiduciary responsibility to you is, if an opportunity arrives to grow that project that he's supporting, he's going to bring you right back into that project as the original partner, because stickiness is a partnership that goes both ways. So lots of different things that can happen here. I'd love to hear from any of you that have questions. If you do, bring it up. Now's the time.
Jonathan, I appreciate everything that you brought up in the PowerPoint presentation. And it just goes to show that all the options that are available with IoT. And, if anything that we've learned over the last 2.5 years is spaces change. And whether it be a fixture that's already integrated with an IoT solution and controls, or something else, everything changes from space to space, from fixture to fixture. And having a service like yours that can help streamline that process and allow people to be better adapt to what they're doing, and not trying to fumble through with opposing thumbs, or as we've seen, it makes the job a lot simpler. And when working with any organization, and they see a partnership within the lighting, or whether it be the install, the manufacturer, the controls, and all that, and they're all working together and looking to provide a seamless solution, the customer feels more confident in making the decision to move forward. So the consistency in messaging, the consistency in getting the job done, and hitting the timeframes and deadlines is what people are looking for. And I think this is just one of those things that will be a great add to anything. And we've talked about the other webinars, whether it be the 179D or even the financing. So, and I love how you brought up the 33300, which is very, very critical in a lot of businesses. I know a lot of people in the space, the COOs and CFOs, they truly understand that. So it's something that needs to be utilized more in your talks.
Well, yeah, and thanks, Matt. I appreciate that. And one of the biggest takeaways I'd like everybody to have is, you might think the customer is not going to go for this, right? Room finding or whatever it may be, but that's not necessarily, that's okay. Because being able to explain this type of information clear enough for them, right? You don't want to dump a bucket of information on them, but it sets you apart. Because I can almost guarantee you, most people are not talking about this type of stuff during the sales process. So it's a way to differentiate yourself. It has to be incorporated in your day-to-day sales, especially if you're dealing with what we would consider strategic customers, vertical customers. They're all looking at this type of information. So you're doing them and yourself a disservice without at least looking at it and evaluating it.
Jonathan, one of the things about your presentation that I think was really powerful, I don't know if it landed or if it kind of flew over everybody's head, but when you talked about the green, orange, and red, and the identification and kind of what that did during the time when that none of us could have ever predicted what COVID was going to do to our nation, to our world, could never have predicted that what our government was going to do in relation to that and in reaction to it. And when you look at that particular slide and how you took an embedded IoT project and turned it into another way for them to save money, to save time, be more efficient, and have visibility over a larger scale property, I think that's one of the best definitions of why, even on smaller jobs, getting an IoT type of opening is so important, because the idea of being able to shift, pivot, plant your foot, go 180 degrees and open up new opportunities to make your company more monetizable and more efficient on the cost side, I think is crucial. And our guys here, I think, are going to have you deal with the Fortune 500 type of large scale operations day in and day out. We're going to have opportunities to do what I call Trojan, the Trojan horse implementation, where you come into a building and you can do maybe half the building, or maybe you're doing one building in a set of buildings. And if you think about this with a long game mentality, if you can get sensors into a building on a granular scale, even small, it opens the door for another sales call a year down the road to potentially grow this and make it bigger, because you're actually giving that owner of the building a way of increasing its value and its potential with such a program. I'd love for you to just kind of riff a little bit about that thought process as well, because that one took me right to that point of saying this is the definition of why IoT is so important.
Yeah, I agree. Thanks, Devin. And if you can understand that story and be able to articulate it to a customer, it's a beautiful use case. So with this company, we started with stairwell retrofit, believe it or not, just with lighting. And through conversation, learned about their huddle rooms or their breakout rooms and how that was an issue for them. So the point is that we were able to start something and build on top of it Once we were doing the conference rooms, the technologies there, we're able to create an app, right, so that they can look at that information from afar. And the best home run is nobody would have expected COVID. Nobody would have expected aimlessly cleaning rooms over and over again, but we were able to take an existing technology and build on top of it. And we have received multiple projects from them in the millions of dollars, right, because of this. And it's going to be really difficult for somebody to come in at this point with some other technologies, right? Because we've been working with them to develop these applications. And, as long as we don't drop the ball, or as long as you don't drop the ball, you really secure yourself solid. You build the walls around that customer, and it's hard for competitors to come in.
Absolutely. We got a question here in the box from Calvin Wynn of E2 Lighting, and they have some IoT product right now in there that they offer, and I think he has a question he'd like to ask you about maybe how that can be leveraged or even worked on with you guys.
Yeah, certainly. Well, then, and that's the thing. So we're always open to conversations. We work with a lot of manufacturers. We work with a lot of construction companies. So yeah, Calvin, absolutely. I'd be very interested to learn more about the technology and see where the fit is.
Yeah, I think probably the call to action here, Calvin, is to make sure that after this that you get in contact with Jonathan and open the door to that conversation, because it might be that there are ways of connecting and driving your product that you don't know about, and he may have opportunities for you that you don't know about. So I think maybe just getting on a call and following that up would be a good thing.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it's good to look at every opportunity, right? And just to repeat, I'm an open door, so there are no such thing as stupid questions. I would not expect anyone to necessarily listen to this presentation and say, yeah, I already knew that, right? It can be intimidating. It's sometimes a different avenue of business, almost a completely separate industry. Yep. But it's so tied to lighting that it's something that's you're going to get left behind if you don't do it. And one thing that's neat too is even from if you're doing like a retail space, a lot of controls companies have applications where you can control the HVAC, right? And I'm not an HVAC mechanical engineer, and I wouldn't expect anybody else on this call to be the same. But being able to have that ability to control, it's an added savings. And again, as you gather more and more assets within a customer's facility, it's that much more difficult for a competitor to come in.
Yeah, I agree.
Build upon themselves.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think in closing, unless there's other people that have some questions here, one of the things that I think is really, really important is to understand kind of the roots of the IoT and kind of how this product or this concept ends up being, a sellable solution. And it comes down to really being able to tell the story. When I first started this whole thing way back in 2010, the IoT was just a word. I don't even think IoT had been even crafted by that time. It was still just saying Internet of Things, and people were telling the stories around, what could be done, but 99% of what we didn't do half of the things we were talking about at that time because it was early and we were selling the future. Well, the future is here. So you have to be able to understand what the capabilities are, what the needs are, and understand that there's a lot of the people that you're talking to now understand this better than they did back in the early days. So being able to sell something like this is all about explaining the story of what the IoT does today, what it's meant to do tomorrow, and what the potential is, which is a great story. It has to do with what happened with COVID, the potential to pivot and be able to control your building and your environment, and for your employees and for yourself. I think that's a big part of this, because if you when you realize it's a little bit of a different language, like Jonathan just said, it's a different, almost a different world that you're kind of stepping into. You don't want to do that alone. And that's where the third party support system, partnership, and that only happens if you get on the phone with them and talk about how this could work going forward. But having someone like Jonathan and his organization by your side, the dollars that can be captured, and not just from the controls piece, but from the added actual electrical work that you're already doing, multiplied by multiple facilities that could be tied to that opportunity, are really incalculable. It's an opportunity that probably hasn't even been considered by your organization because of the fear that goes along with software. And we're offering a solution to the fear by saying, here's your front end support, your design work, the assistance working with the deployment of the product, and then the ongoing commissioning, or the commissioning and then the ongoing support that's required. That's what they can do.
Yeah, it's your ticket to vertical business. It really is. And again, just, if it might be easy to almost explain it away in your head, whether it's through it's intimidating or the customer doesn't have budget, et cetera. The goal is not to sell a COVID application to them, right? But the goal is to just have them aware and understand that the future, they're going to need stuff like this. And it's a what if I don't have it type scenario. And we're seeing people take hold of that idea all over the world. So it's, I would say it's critical, especially any customer that has multiple facilities, they're doing something. And if you're not comfortable with this and you're not presenting it, you're definitely going to be left behind.
Yep. I think the best way to summarize that when we close here is fear breeds stagnation. Perseverance and overcoming that fear opens doors. And that's what we're talking about here, guys. So anywho, that's I think where we're at. This concludes today's Inside ProCents educational webinar hosted by Mr. Jonathan Cambas of IoT Deployment Services. Thank you again, sir. Really appreciate your time. We definitely appreciate what you guys offer, and I look forward to getting you connected more deeply with the environment as we go forward.
Yeah, thanks, Devin. I really appreciate it. And real quick too, is the gift card an email code, or are you going to mail it to me?
I think it got stuck somewhere in the mail. I'll have to go and do a recall on it.
Okay, I'll follow up. Thank you, everybody, for attending. I really do appreciate it. Thank you for your time. And again, you're more than welcome. If you have any questions, just reach out and ask questions.
Absolutely. And you guys see his contact info here. So make sure that you write that down. I will send a copy of this to the team and for everybody along with the video, so you'll have a chance to kind of look it over again. Thank you all for spending the time with us today and for supporting our ProCents environment. Winning is a team effort, and we here at ProCents are all about each other and making this better for everybody involved. And now, as we always do, we're going to close with a bit of our ProCents culture just to do it right. We believe here at ProCents that clear, consistent, and transparent communication practices solve 99% of the inefficiencies and challenges that occur in our daily buyer and seller interactions. So to all of our current and future members, the ProCents culture is very simple, and every member enters and adheres to the ProCents promise. Same-day responses to all communication requests, clear and consistent communication practices for efficient interactions, always turning inward for your organizational needs in a deliberate effort to support all participating members. And it should always go without saying, but I will always say it just because that's the way I am. Do what you say you're going to do, always. At ProCents, we make connections that are sticky and that last, then we get out of the way. We open the doors and our participants always choose their own path, but they do it together. If you'd like to know more about ProCents, check out our website, www.procents.com, or reach out to any one of our leadership team members and get on our calendars. There is no better time than now to get on this train. Thank you all once again, and have a great rest of your day.
You too, Devin. Thank you.